Good morning to you this morning. This is Tuesday, January, December the 15th, and this is Advent reading number 12. Reading from the Book of Common Prayer today, just a short reading, but I'm going to add a little bit of Google, or some help from Google here and Wikipedia on just to fill out the story a little bit. I'm going to read this first from Wikipedia about these four nuns, four Catholic missionaries, brutally murdered in El Salvador back on December 2nd, 1980. So it was the 40th anniversary of this event in El Salvador. December 2nd, 1984. Catholic missionaries from the United States working in El Salvador were raped and murdered by 5 members of the El Salvador National Guard. They were Maryknoll sisters in the town that Sue was raised in, brought up, and had a sister's Maryknoll there in town. They were Maryknoll sisters Maura Clark and Ida Ford, Ursuline, Dorothy Cazell, and lay missionary Jean Donovan. The Salvadoran Civil War began after a 1979 military coup brought the revolutionary government junta to power. Catholic activists protested against the junta's oppression of impoverished citizens. Oscar Romero, the Archbishop of San Salvador, was assassinated on March 24th. So earlier in that year, March 24th, 1980, the Archbishop of San Salvador was murdered while performing Mass. The 4 murdered Americans were involved in an international humanitarian aid mission, which was accused by the regime of fomenting political opposition. Difficult days, difficult situations. The reading on this day makes reference to this, and especially to one of the women murdered. In 1980, Maura Clark, Ida Ford, Dorothy Cazell, and Jean Donovan were murdered by officers of the Salvadoran military. Missionaries serving among the poor during El Salvador's Civil War, these women knew, as Ida Ford said the night before she died, that, quote, "one who is committed to the poor must risk the same fate as the poor," unquote. Their deaths affected the North American church deeply, galvanizing opposition to U.S. support for the Salvadoran government's repression of its people. And then later in this devotional, this meditation, it refers something else to us that Ida Ford wrote. Quote, "The reasons why so many people are being killed are quite complicated, yet there are some clear, simple strands. One is that people have found a meaning to live, to sacrifice, struggle, and even die. And whether their life spans 16 years, 60, or 90, for them their life has had a purpose. In many ways, they are fortunate people." 2 lines in that first part, and then one line there, one line here, remind me of some very important things for us at this time of life. Aside from these 2 things that I'm going to bring up, just the fact that these women, including Archbishop Romero, if you can get the movie that was made about that, it's well worth it. I've watched it a couple of times. Just the level of commitment, the growth of him into seeing that he needs to be a man who helps the needy, just as Jesus would want us to do, and to say no to power. The statement that she is reported, Ida Ford is reported to have said before she died, One who is committed to the poor must risk the same fate as the poor. When I read that at first, I said, that's exactly what Jesus has done for us. He came to help us, but in the process, it was necessary that he identify with us, the poor, the spiritually poor, to identify with us, to walk this earth as we do, to come through all those types of situations of being tempted in every way as we are, and yet without sin. To be our high priest, he had to be one of us, but also in his case, he was also God. He represented both in one man. He came to identify with us, to risk the same fate as we do. And sure enough, he was murdered. He was executed for his beliefs, for his life, for the things he taught and the way he lived, just like Archbishop Romero. He sided with the poor and the needy, was a friend of the sinners, tax collectors and prostitutes. And that kind of lifestyle brought him opposition from the world's powers. And that's what happened to these Catholic missionaries, these Catholic sisters, as they too, just like Archbishop Romero had done before them, died for that practice. In the second part, which I read, the reasons why so many people are being killed are quite complicated. Again, this is Ida Ford speaking. Yet there are some clear, simple strands. One is that people have found a meaning to live, to sacrifice, struggle, and even die. Whether their life spans 16 years, 60, or 90, for them their life has had a purpose. In many ways, they are fortunate people. That is what Jesus offers us, a purpose to live, a reason to live. Before those in the Catholic Church, and not all of them did this, but like these four sisters, like Archbishop Romero, they began to identify with the poor, help them to begin to overcome the causes, most often systemic power corruption in a country like El Salvador. No thanks to our intervention there as well. They began to give them a reason to live, a reason to stand up for themselves, a reason to go and vote and take a stand against the oppression of the government. Now they had a reason to live. Now they saw hope. That's what Jesus gives to us. He came and he stood with us to give us a reason to become citizens of his kingdom and to live that kind of life that helps others, loves others, presents the gospel of the kingdom to others. And so whether we die at 16 or 60 or 90, we've been given a purpose, a real, meaningful purpose beyond just daily existence, having enough. I like this devotion. Obviously, you can tell. One who is committed to the poor must risk the same fate as the poor. One who is committed to reaching the lost has to be willing to suffer what they suffer, to identify with them. Again, just what Jesus did for us. And we need to present to others, here's a reason to live. Here's a life of being transformed and changed and given a purpose to live. Let's focus on that reality during this time of Lent, that Jesus came to do this for us. He came to identify with us, and he came to give us a purpose and a reason to live, to have value in our lives each day, because we're living for something more than ourselves. We're living for something beyond all of this earthly stuff. And oh, what a privilege and a joy it is to work for the Master and identify with the Master. Do that today. Think that through, of all the purpose that's been given to you in your life. If you are a follower of Jesus, you've been given an eternal purpose, a life-changing purpose to live out every day, and he showed you how to do it because he identified with you in it and set the way for us. Blessings to you today.